Hi, I'm Brita Fordice, and on this episode of Rio's Tying the Fly, I'm going to be tying for you a Marabou Damsel nymph. This pattern uses a streamer hook in a size 8 to a 14. I'm going to start with some olive thread and 140 denier. You could also use 70 denier, that would work as well. Start by wrapping the shank right behind the eye, going all the way down and stopping right between the point and the barb of the hook. This is where I'm going to cut off the excess. Then I'm going to go back and wrap all the way back up the hook. You want to make sure to get that shank fully covered, just so that none of the materials you tie in at a later time end up getting pulled out or spinning on you. So you want that nice solid base. Next, I'm going to be tying in some mono eyes in olive in a size small. You could also use extra small. Now I'm going to take a pair of eyes and I'm going to tie them in right behind my hook eye. I'm going to do a couple loose wraps. Then I'm going to take it and turn it so it's facing perpendicular to the hook shank. Now I'll go ahead and do a couple wraps this direction. And now we can get away with figure eighting. So we're going to do a couple that way, a couple that way. So now I'm going to go ahead and go behind and under the eyes and over the shank, under the eyes, over the shank. And by doing this, it's going to really, really lock in these eyes and keep them in place for you even after a day of casting and a few fish, hopefully. So once I'm done with this, I'll go ahead and add a drop of head cement. And this tends to lock everything in and really solidify those eyes in place. I'm not going to do that right now because I don't want to deal with it while we're tying. Now I'm going to take my thread and wrap it all the way back to where I stopped it at the beginning. Next, we're going to go ahead and grab our feather of Marabou. And this, I'm going to take the side material off of it and use that for the tail and the body. So I'll take these fibers and I'm going to strip them off by pulling in the opposite direction of the grain of the feather. Once I've got these bunched together nicely, I'm going to take a portion at the end of it, which is the tip of the feather, and use that as the tail of my damsel. I want it to be about 3/4 of an inch in length, so I'll go ahead and pinch where that location is, hold it on top of my hook shank, and do a few wraps, just to really get it tied in there, and that will be our Marabou tail. Now I'm going to take a piece of my copper wire. This is a size small, but extra small would work as well. And I'm going to go ahead and fold back the Marabou tail piece while I tie this in. So I'm going to take about 1/4 of an inch or so and let it stick out the front and wrap all the way back and over it. It's good to do this with a wire piece just because they tend to pull out and slide, so you want to make sure that you tie down a fair amount of it and really wrap good over that. I'm going to stop right behind the eyes of my mono eyes. Now I could take my Marabou and I'm going to wrap away from me up towards the eye of the hook. So I'm just wrapping right over that shank there, all the way up to the eye of the hook. Once I get to the eye of the hook, I'm going to hold this and I'm going to do a couple wraps right over it so that I've got it nice and locked in there. And I'm going to cut off the excess Marabou. Now I'm going to do another couple of wraps of thread just to lock it in there. Now I could take my copper wire and I want to go the opposite direction wraps that I did with my Marabou. So you want to go the opposite way. So I'm going to go underneath and over instead. This counter ribbing basically just really helps to add durability to the Marabou so that a fish doesn't chomp it and end up ruining it for you. So I'm wrapping over my wire to lock that in. Cut off that excess wire. Do another couple wraps. And now we're going to use some dubbing for the head of this fly. The dubbing I like to use is a mixture of ice dub and natural fibers. And this lends itself really well to a simple dubbing technique that I guess you could say I invented it. It's the lazy Brita's way of dubbing. what you can do for this is grab a small pinch of it, place it in your left hand and over where you plan to dub. The technique itself is that you do a few wraps and it automatically catches on the dubbing and it holds it into place and it wraps as you tie and do wraps with your thread. The shaggy appearance in the end works perfect for a pattern such as a damsel nymph pattern. And it gives that flash a nice kind of buggy appearance. So now that I've gotten that nice and tied in well, I'm going to go ahead and do my whip finish. I like to do a couple times just to make sure it's not going anywhere. Once I've done with that, just to clean up some of the materials, the little dubbing pieces that are kind of sticking out, I'm going to go ahead and use my favorite tool here, which is my cauterizer. And that cleans up that eye really nice, makes it perfect. This pattern works fantastic in virtually every lake that has damsels that hatch. Damsels hatch anywhere from the spring through the summer, depending on your location. It also works really well in colors such as a light ginger all the way through a darker olive. I appreciate you watching. Thanks so much.